Yeah, good afternoon or good evening to all Dharma brothers and sisters. Today, I got an opportunities and invited by our student association about the Dhamma talk. So today they gave us a topic called dependent origination, which is one of the core teaching on Buddhism, and it is also known as the heart teaching of Buddhism, which also include Four Noble Truths, including Four Noble Truths. These two teachings are the most important and very essential for Buddhist teachings. So before I starting about the dependent originations, I would like to describe or give the definitions of dependent originations. So as just for the simple, we can think about the word dependent and origination. So what is dependent? Dependent means to rely on another thing. So only in these two words we can understand the main teachings of dependence originations. So dependent means relying on another. Origination means to start or to arise. So look, the meaning of itself can show that it's all phenomena things had non-self, doesn't arise itself. It have to depend to another things. So in all traditions, not only Theravada, Mahayana and Vajrayana, this dependent origination is the core teachings, and in Tibetan we call it Tendel, and in Pali already we have most venerables and Bhikkhuni already mentioned about Paticcasamuppāda. So actually in dependent originations there will be very many links, but to be like very simple, Buddha had just put only 12 links, and our just recently presenter speak about the 12 links about the abhijja, sankara, vinana, namarupa, salayatana, pasa, vedana, tanha, upadana, bhava, jati, and jaramanana. So why again question arises, why just before I started talking I just mentioned that, and even our all speaker mentioned that it is the core teaching of Buddhism. So why it become a core teaching of Buddhism? Because in Buddhism, or not only in Buddhism, all the sentient beings desire to be happy, desire to not get sufferings, and Buddhism is one of the best teaching to just exclude from the sufferings. So there are many teachings, but because of the starting people, for like the beginners, Buddha just taught dependent origination is very simple way to get how to get enlightened or how to get out from this samsara and suffering. Because as we burn in this samsara, it's all the suffering, all the things are suffering, as our venerable Kundala mentioned that before. So ignorance. And if you just learn this dependent originations, I think you no need to learn more about other things if you have the correct idea about this, because it itself can describe the Four Noble Truths. Because Ben Kundala has just mentioned that the first abhijja is the suffering, and after abhijja, sankara is the cause of suffering. And in dependent originations, in direct form, it will indicate the two, suffering and cause of suffering, in Four Noble Truths. And if we reserve it, diverse it, it will just show the path of suffering and the nibbana itself. So that's why if you understand the meaning of these dependent originations, so you will know the main formula or main teaching to get out from this sanskara. And the main thing, the first point is abhijja, which is ignorance, which is like you don't have the correct view, as when Kundala mentioned that because we suffer, because we don't have the correct view. Why? Because we are uneducated, we don't have the wisdom or knowledge or education how we can come out from these sufferings. So that's why the first is abhijja. So all the things we suffer because of abhijja. So that's why it's in first things. So after abhijja, then what comes means because of ignorance, the formation starts, and that is called sanskara, or in English, the habitual tendencies. So again, it's like it spontaneously just goes like this. Because of sanskara, vinana come the psycho, like mind and matter, and then sixth sense, then awareness, feeling, after feeling, carving. So it will just continue like that. So the first to cut the suffering is to educate yourself, not to be abijja or not to be ignorance. So you have to be educated, not only aside of the, like we say educated. So how to be educated? As our bhikkhuni mentioned that Buddhism is not only about the religion or teaching, it is the teaching of law of nature. So if you educate yourself in the law of nature, then it will be the best education that you give yourself to get rid or get out from this suffering. So just I mentioned about the 12 dependent links. Then here is one very popular, just like Myanmar or Kundal have mentioned. This is one another very beautiful picture painting Thangkas, which can explain the dependent origination very nicely. And you can see this in all Vajrayana temple in the front. When you are going to enter the temple, every right side you will see this picture, because as I mentioned, this is the most important, one of the most important teachings. So what is this means? There you can see like a very angry a deity, and we call it Hashang, who is just after you dead, he will just how to say compare your good deeds and bad deeds and where you belong. Then according to your karma. And then you can see at the top a Buddha, which is just showing in another side. You can see a moon, which is that you have to educate yourself. Wisdom should be needed to get out from this samsara, and this is called the samsara, the 6 realms. You can see the 6 path and the 6 realms, and outer of that you can see the 12 boxes, which you can see first painting as a blind man in the big grounds. So as I mentioned, why abijja? Abijja is like a blind man in a big field. So if you just put a blind man in a big field, the blind man he don't know where to go. So it's like if you are not educated well, you are not know how to go and which is the correct path to get enlightened. So on, there is 12 paintings. We saw all the meaning of the dependent origination. And as I said, dependent originations, as Buddha also taught in Samyutta Nikaya, very easily, because when this is, that is. From the arising of this comes the arising of that. When this isn't, that isn't. From the sensation of this comes the sensation of that. So when something starts, because of something. When something ends, because of something. So everything is dependent in each other. So in just a simple way, dependent origination is the main teaching, because as other religion, I will not mention which religion, but they have some kinds of illusion that there is a God, there is a creator, there is a permanent soul or space or time. But these teachings will exclude all this idea that nothing is impermanent or nothing is self-made. Everything should be dependent on each other. That itself can show the meaning of emptiness in Mahayana also. So lots of people will think, what is emptiness? And they got some emptiness is like nothing to see, nothing to hear. It's not like that. The emptiness itself is like you are not self. So you have to depend on other self. Itself can see. So the meaning of the true meaning of the emptiness itself. That's why the dependent originations look so simple. But if you have a good understanding of the dependent originations, you will know the main core idea of Buddhism. We saw the path of enlightenment. That's why it's become the heart or the main teachings in Buddhism. So thank you.